Mills Boon, proposition by the Billionaire, Chapter 1. Right. Phoebe broke a twig off an overhanging branch and stuck it between her teeth. She twisted her hair into a thick rope, wound it deftly onto the top of her head, and secured it with the twig. Then she slipped out of her shoes and wriggled to hitch her dress up her thighs. Taking a deep, fortifying breath and trying not to think about what might lurk beneath the surface of the water, she gave herself a quick shake, straightened her spine, and set her sights on her target. "Do you need a hand?" The deep voice came from behind her, and Phoebe shrieked, jumped almost a foot into the air, and nearly pitched headlong into the pond. She spun round, her hand flying to her throat and her heart thundering, as a large shouty figure leaning against a tree swam into vision. "Who are you?" she squeaked when she was able to breathe again. "What are you doing out here anyway?" "Admiring the scenery." Somehow she knew he wasn't referring to the landscape, and she felt a kick of something in the pit of her stomach. "You should be inside admiring the handbags." "Not really my thing." "Then perhaps you're at the wrong party." Phoebe frowned. Come to think of it, he hadn't actually answered her question. She'd met and ticked everyone off the guest list, and none of them had had such an impressive outline. So who the hell was he? Phoebe ran her gaze over him, momentarily forgetting what was going on behind her, and found herself wondering what he looked like. Part of her longed for him to step into the light so she could get a proper look at him and see if his looks matched up to his voice. The other toyed with the idea of summoning the bouncers, because whoever he was, this was a private party, and if he wasn't on the guest list, then he should be gate crashing. In fact, she thought, pulling herself together, he could well have sneaked in while she'd been in Mr. Bugoni's office, staring at the fuzzy CCTV feed and simultaneously trying to swallow her astonishment, placate the violet Italian, and ignore his mutterings about suing for damages should anything happen to La Flamingo. "My name is Alex, and you should choose your boyfriends more carefully." At the icy, restrained lace in his voice, Phoebe's eyes jerked to his, and for a moment she forgot how to breathe. Oh, dear God! His eyes were mesmerizing. Grey. No, not just grey. Silver, rapidly darkening to slate, and fringed with the thickest eyelashes she'd ever seen on a man, set beneath the dark eyebrows and blazing down at her with fierce concern. He wasn't just handsome, he was jaw-droppingly gorgeous, but not in the pretty way the men who occupied her world were. This man looked like the sort of man who knew how to do, and probably did, the things that real men were supposed to do. The little white scar above his right eye and the hint of a broken nose gave him an air of danger that she might have considered to be intoxicating if she'd been in the market for a man, when she wasn't. But heavens, that mouth! What a mouth! Her hands, currently curled into fists and jammed between his chest and hers, itched to unfurl themselves, creeped their way up the thick white cotton shirt, maybe taking in a quick detour to the V of tan flesh exposed where his top button was undone, and up round his neck to wind themselves in his hair so they could tug that delicious-looking mouth and weld it to hers. Phoebe blinked. What on earth was she thinking? Her body had no business behaving like this, especially without her prior approval, and that would not be forthcoming this evening. Or ever, she reminded herself belatedly, pushing all thoughts of what sort of things a real man might be required to do out of her head. Giving herself a mental shake, she forced herself to concentrate. What had he been saying? She saw frantically. Boyfriends, that was it. What boyfriend? She managed, squeezing her hands tighter and holding back some of the self-control that had fled when she pulled her against him. That jerk in the pond. He's not my boyfriend. After her last disastrous relationship, she was off men forever, especially ones who crept up on her and nearly gave her an heart attack, however good looking. Did he hurt you? No, of course not. What was he talking about? She struggled to pull herself out the steel of his arm, but it was no good. Alex didn't seem inclined to let her go. Instead, he gripped her chin with his long brown fingers and turned her face so that the light fell on her cheek. He took it swing at you with the bottle, he said harshly. Where'd he hit you? Phoebe's skin sizzled beneath the pressure of his fingers. Have you lost your mind? She said, baffled as much by the tingle shooting through her as the direction of the conversation. Mark didn't hit me. Are you sure? Of course I'm sure, she said. I think I might have noticed if I'd been thwacked by a bottle of champagne, particularly vintage. His mouth tightened. Not funny. I couldn't agree more, she said sharply. There was absolutely nothing funny about the damage he could have done tonight, possibly the most important night of her and Joe's lives. Can I have me chin back? He let her chin go, as if it were on fire, and she swung her head round to glare at him. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, and Phoebe became aware that, still locked in his vice-like embrace as she was, every inch of her body pressed up against every hard-muscled inch of his. Time seemed to judder to an halt. Music drifted towards them, the sultry beat winding through her and whipping up unfamiliar sensations that stretched out and took over her ability to think about anything other than having his mouth hot and demanding on hers. Phoebe could barely comprehend what was happening to her. No man had ever had this effect on her before. She felt attraction, tremors of lust even, quite often, but never this slow, jogging desire humming deep inside her, making her whole body itch with the need to reacquaint itself with his. She wouldn't even have far to tug. 1 centimetre, maybe 2, and they'd be locked together, tumbling down onto a pile of huge cushions that lined the pergola and pulling at each other's clothing in the middle of the party that she was supposed to be running. Oh God,